Most people think that avoidant can move on overnight. From the outside, they seem happy, they have new routines, as if nothing happened. In reality, what they are doing is not moving on, they are moving away. And right now for you, it's confusing because you have a hard time dealing with this breakup and you are comparing your healing journey with theirs. Stick around because I'm going to share with you something very interesting about avoidance and how they deal with the breakup. What we call this inner clock. So you can stop comparing your healing journey, but also understand and match your strategy, your approach for you to gain clarity after this breakup. So as I said, there are two clocks, the outside one and the inside one. The problem is that we see the outside one, obviously. The thing is, the outside one, the external clock, is really about being busy, going on potentially new dates, low emotions, etc., etc. So that's why a lot of avoidance after a breakup, they will go full, going back to work, workaholic, spending hours and hours on work. And you feel like, I can't even go to work. I can't even focus at work. I don't want to wake up in the morning. How can they do that? It's a way for them to cope with the breakup. Because when you're at work, let me take this example because I think it's very, very telling. When you're at work, do you need your emotions? Do you need to discuss about, do you need to be vulnerable? No, it's really about like achieving something. Also, it's a way, if you're good at work, if you're a high performer, to feel good about yourself. So that's why avoidance, not all avoidance, but they like going back to work and giving like 200% of themselves. And they are, again, trying to cope with this. The internal clock is the distress and is masked early. They don't want to feel sad, depressed. So, for example, as a former avoidant, I developed this ability to push things away. Okay, if something stressful happens, if something painful, sad, etc., happens to me, I would have the ability to push it on the side. Does it mean it's the right way to deal with things? No, but you're pushing things away. Therefore, they're not in your horizon. This is why they call avoidance, right? So we avoid things. They're here, but we don't want to look at them. That's the problem. So that's one way to solve a problem. It's like, oh, it doesn't exist because I can't see it, right? The problem is, it's there. And that will resurface. And that's the thing you need to understand. For you, it's here. It's almost always in front of you. For avoidance, it's somewhere, but they're not looking there. Okay, so the point and the objective, the secure response is how we can observe, how we can manage those emotions, how we can make sense of this reality, neither in it doesn't exist, nor it's driving every single of my action. So why they seem to move on? There's the element of what we call deactivation. So as I said, we don't play, we distract. It doesn't happen. It's not reality. And I'm going to focus on something else. There's also an element of bringing novelty, which is actually a good coping mechanism. So it's about like, okay, changing routines, seeing new people, getting back to new sport, etc. When you do that, if you, for example, start something new, the intimacy level will be very low, right? Because you're going to stay superficial because it's you. That's why for avoidant, they would, rather than tapping into vulnerability in people they know very well, they might see like, oh yeah, they're very buzzing and have a busy life because it helps them to be superficial. So again, when I was younger, I would love having big parties with 50 people. You keep it very superficial. But then when you're grown up and you want to discuss deep things and have time with people, you can't do that with 50 people. You can also feel, oh, it's over, they moved on because they will unfollow, they will pack things, they will, again, have these new routines. And that's the hardest one, they might tell you things to reinforce this idea of vulnerability, commitment is not for me. So things we were not right, it's not working, etc., etc. So it's like reinforcing this idea of I'm not okay, or I feel triggered by this relationship because I'm avoiding intimacy, commitment, and so on. And I feel this relationship is too much for me. Therefore, I'm going to create the scenarios and the voices in my head to tell you, well, we are not right for us. And they dismiss the feelings, right? Don't get me wrong. All the clients that I help are still in love. I can't help people to fall back in love. That doesn't work. But we can fix what's broken. So when it's a case of anxious avoidant, this is what we repair. We repair the bond around like, how can we develop a secure base? How can we develop a secure relationship? So things can work out the same way I developed a secure base with my wife and so on and so forth. So it's something you can adjust. It's not about feelings. And so the problem is that you read it after a breakup, I was like, actually, they never had feelings for me. Or they lost feelings for me. Look at the words. Look at what they say. Usually they don't say, I don't love you anymore. They would say, it's not working. We were not right. It's too much for me, etc., etc. So the thing is, again, you need to understand that the problem is that there's a clash of two realities. You want to get louder. You want to be expressive. You are emotional. Which is, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. For them, they get quieter, right? They look productive. And because of this clash, you feel like, well, that's either I do something wrong, either I was completely wrong about this relationship. It has nothing to do with that. It's about how they cope with this situation. But let's talk about what happens after. As we discussed, the initial response is like coping, numbing. Don't want to deal with that. After a while, they will feel the breakup the same way you're feeling the breakup right now. So could be around key dates, when they come back at home after a while, because initially you feel, oh, it's great, I'm on my own, I can play video games, I can watch Netflix, whatever. After a while, you feel like, yeah, actually, we had a good time. Actually, I like sharing some time, with my spouse, with my partner. The idea of like loneliness is not anymore a way for me to feel freer and more independent, but more feel disconnected to the world. And so that's why you can have sometimes people will start to rebound and go on dates. That's why they would have anxiety, again, very much internal. You won't see it. And this is where they could have those thoughts. And this is where we need to time the reconnection element of what if we get back together? What if I was wrong? What if actually that was not that bad? What if this idea of not working together is actually maybe I over sort of made it more complex than it actually is? And the thing is, it's actually very simple to get back with someone when you have an anxious avoidant dynamic. You just have to work at being secure. And it's not that it's simple in the sense that you can do it overnight, but it's like, now that it's like very, very studied, there are ways for you to develop a secure attachment style in the context of a relationship in a matter of weeks. Not years, weeks. And once you know how to do it, it becomes simple. The relationship becomes easy because you're speaking the same language. There are a few subtle signs that they still think about you. One is that they're still following you on social media, you're not blocked, you see that they're active and watching your content, your stories on Instagram. That doesn't mean that you're going to get back together, don't get me wrong, but that means that the lines of communications are open. They might also ping you about logistic things, or you forgot a shirt, there's something about a birthday with a common friend, etc., etc. So they find ways to connect with you. I see that a lot. They would go to the same coffee place. You would go. They would go to the same local bakery or whatever. They could pick any other places, but they still go there. The idea is to treat those signs as data point over time, right? One view on a story is a one view on a story. What we need to see is an addition of data points in order for us to see, okay, now it seems that they're in that regret phase, that they are thinking about me. They're wondering, what am I doing? This is the right opportunity for you to then connect. I put here that they might reach out and send you what we call like low risk pings. I have nothing against reaching out, because at the end of the day, you want clarity. And you won't come across as needy or desperate if you reach out after a few weeks after the breakup. The problem that people have is that they reach out right after a breakup. They don't leave enough time for the avoidant. We discussed about this internal and external clock. You don't leave enough time for them to regret the breakup, to regret the decision if they're the one who left you. Let's discuss the things you should not do. And it's called the danger zone. It's this idea of when you're in an anxious avoidant relationship, you could trigger each other and create a vicious circle. So you are pressuring them. You are chasing. As an avoidant, if you're doing that with me, I would withdraw. I would want to disappear. What happens if I do that? You would want to chase more, etc., etc. So the point is to avoid chasing at all costs. You make one step, you wait. So for example, if you break the contact, you send one message, you wait, you assess, and then you follow their lead. Don't try to test or corner or use emotional ultimatums. That will backfire. Don't use, and again, it's very difficult to understand, don't use emotions as a way to connect. So the reason or the way an avoidant will get back with you, or the way you prove them that you can work together, it's not about telling them how much you love them. That wouldn't change their mind. So it's a bit of a strange thing, because if you have an anxious attachment style, this is the only thing you want. Prove me that you love me, because that's what I'm after. For avoidant, it's about safety. Okay? And for anxious, it's about safety, and the safety comes from knowing that they love you. And so it's this element of like, I'm not going to pressure you. I'm not going to try to have conversation on things you're not ready to have. So the emotions, because they're a bit clumsy when it comes to dealing with emotions, you don't want to approach the reconciliation this way. Right? So if you pursue them, they will deactivate. You will create a loop, and it's going to be a never-ending circle. So what do you do to stay outside of this danger zone? You create what I call a secure base. It's not coming from me, it's coming from Bowlby. This idea of you create the right environment for the relationship to grow, where you both feel safe emotionally. The problem is that feeling safe is different from an avoidant and an anxious person. First element is about emotional regulation. So how do you manage your emotions properly? You take care of yourself. You eat well, you sleep, you see people, you don't stay on your own just watching my videos, you connect with people. So that's the first element. I remember when I had newborns, if you don't sleep well, you're very stressed and you get angry, and it's very hard to focus, etc., etc. So for example, sleep, the environment is very important. The other element is the cognitive element, is about how can you stop ruminating? How can you stop self-blaming, the negative self-talk? I often use this image of you need to be the scientist of this story, not judging what happens. And we are very, very good at judging ourselves, at being hard on ourselves. The idea here is to look at the data, reflect on things. That's why it's usually easier to do it with a therapist, with a coach, because they will give you an unbiased view of what's going on. They will give you the key. They will see, reflect the blind spot and so on. That's the second element. Then the other element is the accommodating in terms of testing this reality, right? It's about, okay, reframing things, changing new routines, right? And then over time, you track your mood, your sleep. That's basically paving the way for the right relationship. You basically, in other words, it's how you develop a secure attachment style. So this video is not about developing a secure attachment style. It's for you to understand that practically If you feel that your avoidant partner moved on already and that you've wasted years and years in your life, it's not so, that's not necessarily the reality. But one way to gain that clarity is to be the role model, is to take the first step, is to be more secure, and then you'll be able to test the relationship. How do you test the relationship? It's by starting with low pressure re-engagement. If you decide that's what we want to do, right? So sometimes people, they develop that secure attachment style and they realize like, that's not what I want. And that's good for you. It doesn't matter if you don't get back together. I mean, in my view, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you have the relationship you deserve, right? And you feel happy and connected in this relationship. So how do you reconnect? How do you climb up that ladder? So it could start with a short message, then around logistics, around things that maybe you forgot at home. Then you have a conversation. Maybe you text once a week, twice a week, etc., etc. Then you call up, and then you need to see each other. People don't get back together by text. Okay, it never happened. So it's about like, okay, seeing each other. Now, seeing each other doesn't mean this date is the date where you'll fix everything, right? This date is just the time where you plant a seed, you're projecting this secure base that you created for the last 30 days, and then you build from that. One way, my advice, if you are dealing with an avoidant, is to always mirror their pace. Because the problem with avoidant, as we discussed in the danger zone, is that if you are a little bit ahead of them, they might feel pressured. So this process is really like follow their step and be the role model in terms of what should be the right relationship. Now, when I see follow their steps, I can hear you saying like, oh yeah, but I don't want to be a doormat and stuff. I get it. This is a process. It has to have a beginning and an end. Because yes, you don't want to be accommodating. You don't want to be the one leading the way forever. You're just like, this is the deal. Take it or leave it, type of things. You have to be patient to create the sense of safety with your avoidant partner. Because to take it or leave it in one meeting, in one meetup, in one date, that wouldn't work. And what you have to do is evaluate, every time you see them, every time you have an interaction with them, is it going in the right direction? Are they opening up? Are they taking accountability? Right? If you end up exactly the same way, same place you were at the beginning, and it happens sometimes, people stay around, right? But there's no commitment, there's no investment. You are wasting your time. And it's very important for you to recognize this. And actually, people who are able to recognize they're wasting time are the ones who developed a secure attachment style in the first place. That's why we're going back to this is the first point. The difference between someone secure and anxious in the context of a relationship with an avoidant who doesn't make any effort is that the secure person will walk away because they will realize that's not for me. So that's why there's a very important element of introspection if you have an anxious attachment style. So don't stay on the hook because you have, life is too short. You don't want to waste any more weeks on something that wouldn't work for you. The two green lines is you're regulated, right? You feel better. If, for instance, you're back in touch with them, you're dating, you feel loved, but at the same time you feel anxious, you don't feel yourself, that's not the right relationship. The other element is you see progress, right? They respect your boundaries, and you see that there's a trend. And you see that there's also, didn't put it, but like accountability. Okay? You're waiting for conditions. If they don't show up, if they don't meet those conditions, you still win. Because they're not giving you what you want. Okay? So that's where I'm always in that we need to shift from I need to get my ex back, which could be a win-loss. Either you get back and you win, and you don't get back together, you lose. That's not how it works. What you have to do in the win-win situation is like working on yourself, developing a secure base, a secure attachment style, which means that you'll have the relationship you deserve. Either it doesn't work out and you win because you want that relationship more than just that person, or you get back together and you win. And this time, you know that this relationship will make you happy. Because getting back together for just the sake of getting back together, and I see that I have people on the phone, not every week, but every month. Well, oh, we got back together 3 times, 4 times. Nothing changes. What's the point? Right? So it's really about like, how can you ensure that this time around, this is different? Now, if you're not sure whether this was the right relationship or you're confused about the situation, there's a quiz that I put together. It's totally free, but it helps you assess actually if this person, because some avoidant partners are definitely not partner materials, and you might be wasting your time. So have a look. It tells you as well when is the right time to reach out, or if you have, if you're in touch with them, the things you need to do to clarify things. My cat wants to contribute. Quick recap. Yeah. Oh, here we go. They delay. They don't truly move on. I've lost completely track. Understand that the way they, their actions, how they behave, etc., or the speed has nothing to do with the healing because there's a delay, right? If they're rebounding, that's not the sign that they moved on. It's just like they are just like distracting themselves. Focus on what you can control, on your power. I hope it's not gonna drop my camera. Regulate first, and now it is. Regulate, stop self-attack. So be kind to yourself. Create new routines. And look at the 2 green system. Okay, I'm never gonna finish this video properly. See you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.